Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, Hot Fudge Sundae y en la nueva Creamy Chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Para pa pa pa.
Whether your business has 6 floors or 6 employees, Walmart Business has everything you need to save time, money, and hassle. You can restock your break room with bulk ordering or bulk up your ordering team with shared payments. And you can get it all delivered straight to your business's door, whether that's on Wall Street or Main Street. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, Duke fans, hey there. It's Jason. I'm hosting. Haven't done this in a little while, so I could mess it up a little bit. We'll see. This is episode 727 of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. I'm here with my buddy Donald Wine. Donald, how you doing?
Jason, I hope you have a very clean show. You're back as host for the first time in a while because, you know, Golden Globe nominations are officially on the line. We got to be ready. We got to be on point, Jason. So here we go. Yes. I sent this to you earlier today. The Golden Globes have added a best podcast category. I think it's kind of unfair to all the other podcasts out there that they have to compete with us. I don't know how, you know, Serial or The Daily or The Rewatchables are possibly going to compete with you and me doing this about Duke basketball. I think our nomination is all but assured. I'm trying to decide what outfit I'm going to wear, what, you know, interesting tuxedo I may wear to the Golden Globes next year. How about you? You got any interesting, what would you do if we're nominated for a Golden Globe? You going top hat? You going cane? Tails? What you got, man?
I'm channeling my energy from the Met Gala. So it's going to be something that I might come as was it Damon Idris? I might just come as a F1 driver for the new movie that's coming out. Who knows? You never know. But we have to be nominated first. So everyone, I don't know who you actually put to nominate.
There's no like community. We get the Golden Globes have been, by the way, the Golden Globes used to be, you could bribe people. You could get a nomination.
We don't have that kind of cash. We could give them some Factor.
Yeah, right. Factor meals. Exactly. If we did have that kind of cash, we would funnel it toward Duke's NIL efforts. Let's be honest.
I believe that's true. Yeah. Because we're going to need it now that we got a new player.
Yeah, exactly. We got a lot of stuff to cover on this edition of the DBR podcast. It's so funny. Like you and I a day or two ago, we're like, maybe we'll talk about the schedule or something. And we decided we're going to record at this time. And suddenly, like, the news just came like crazy. It's almost like the news people who control Duke were like, oh, Jason and Donald are going to record at 4:00 on Wednesday. We should dump everything between noon and 4:00.
Gotta love that Wednesday news dump.
Yeah, exactly. The lead story. Here's what we're starting with, folks. I'm gonna do this right. Hold on. Ifeanyi Ufochukwu.
Nope.
Ifeanyi
Nope.
Ufochukwu. Did I
Nope.
get that
Nope.
right? I think so.
No, you did not. Ifeanyi Ufochukwu.
Ifeanyi? Oh, Jesus.
Ifeanyi. Yeah.
Ifeanyi. I got the last name right. Ufochukwu, a big man from Rice University, has committed to play for the Duke Blue Devils starting next year. He's a guy who redshirted a year ago. I want to be very clear. I've seen people toss out Stanley Borden. I think that's wrong. This guy is better. This guy is more of a player than a Stanley Borden. I've seen people toss out Neil Begovic. I think he's actually maybe slightly above a Neil Begovic kind of player, but I think he's not quite a Christian Reeves as I use every low minute big man out there for Duke over the past few years. I feel like he somewhere falls Ufochukwu in between like a Neil Begovic and a Christian Reeves. Has played a total of 88 minutes in his entire career at Rice. He's played 2 years at Rice. He redshirted last season. He is somewhat athletic and imposing. Big guy. I mean, like pushing 7 feet, 240 or so pounds. This is a big body in the middle. I refer to him. He's kind of a break glass in case of emergency big man in case Patrick Gongba and Malik Brown get hurt. But he's mostly a practice body. It is worth noting, Donald, and I'll let you get in and talk about him a little bit. He played his high school ball in Charlotte before going to Rice. So to some extent, he's coming home. He made the American Athletic Conference all academic team last year at Rice, and he got his degree at Rice in 3 years. Rice is a really good school. That is very impressive. I think this is a guy who is going to fit right in the graduate programs at Duke. I have no idea if he's going to be getting a MBA or not, but you could definitely see him following the Neil Begovic, Ryan Young kind of plan and doing a couple of years at Duke and getting his MBA from the Blue Devils. And the last thing I wanted to note is this, and I'm stealing all your material, I'm sure. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. He has connections to Duke. First of all, Cameron Sheffield also played at Rice, and they overlapped by a couple of years. And Ufochukwu played AAU ball, at least part of the time, on the same team as Caleb Foster. So between CFOS, between Cameron Sheffield, between just Duke's general connection to Rice, because we've gotten Rice transfers, Sean Obi, we've gotten Rice transfers in the past. You feel like there's a lot here that makes this make a ton of sense. But I'm glad. I mean, look, the Duke roster, we've been talking about the fact they needed to add more guys. Not all the guys they're going to add are going to be stars. It's a great practice body for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, well, you stole a lot of my material here. I was going to start with the
host privilege, baby.
Yeah, I was going to start with the Rice pipeline. Give it up for that because, again, as you mentioned, Cameron Sheffield and Ufochukwu overlapped by 2 years before Cameron came to Duke last year, and I think that may be what has sold him on coming to Duke. Right, the idea that yes, you're going to be most likely a practice body, but Cameron Sheffield is not like he sat on the bench all year and did nothing, right? He got in the games. Were they garbage time minutes? Sure. But he still was able to get time on the floor, just like you said a Neil Begovic kind of player does. So in that sense, Ufochukwu is a little bit more ready to be that breaking case of emergency glass that maybe Stanley Borden was not last year, which is why we had 4 centers on the team as opposed to 3. Now, I think the one thing that can be considered is the fact you mentioned, right? He's 6'11", 240. He has some athleticism in him. And I think also what the idea is that he is a type of player that maybe lesser than that of a Malik Brown or a Pat Gongba, but is in that same kind of vein. As if to say, Jon Scheyer does not have to reinvent the style of offense or the type of defense that he wants to play. If for some reason he has to be on the floor, he can be a plug and play type of guy. Now, will he get a ton of playing time? We're not expecting that right now. But again, everyone who comes to Duke with that opportunity to compete for minutes. And if he shines during practices during the summer and into the fall, then they will figure out a way to put him on the floor. So I think that's great. The fact that you mentioned that he's smart. Of course, Rice is a very like-minded school to Duke. We get a lot of transfers in general between the two schools, and people like to go between the schools, either for undergrad and graduate. It's the same, it's a similar vein of type of student. And the fact that he got his degree in 3 years is just that's just wild. I don't care who you are. To get a degree in 3 years from any university is ridiculous, but to get it from Rice is amazing. So he has 2 years of eligibility when he comes to Duke, and I'm really excited at the fact that we're starting to round out this particular group. And sure, again, we're not looking at this guy as someone who's going to log major minutes yet, right? Like he's a guy that maybe can factor as a garbage guy, a guy who could be a leader, right? Because he's an upperclassman. He can be a guy who can, get guys ready and get, Patrick Gongba and Malik Brown ready for every single opponent we're going to face. We're going to talk about some of the non-conference slate that we need to really prepare for to be physical. That is going to be the type of player that he is. And I'm appreciative of the fact that he is willing to take the step, because a guy of his stature maybe could have gotten a better offer for more playing time somewhere else. But he wants to come to Duke. He wants to be a part of this. Cameron Boozer is going to be in the mix too. He's going to be factoring in with helping to get him better as well. And that's the type of guys you need. And I think, as you mentioned, the connection with Cameron Sheffield and Caleb Foster make it where this was an easy win for him. And a nice surprise for us, because I don't think this was something that was on the radar until it actually happened.
Yeah, and look, we don't. This is a guy who was not, unregarded coming out of high school. By some rankings, I think 24/7 had him as the 49th best center in the class when he was coming out of high school. Top 50 center. That's, let's be clear, that's not the kind of profile of a guy who usually comes to Duke, but it's also not the profile of someone who doesn't earn minutes someplace. And he played a bigger role at Rice than, for example, Neil Begovic did at Stanford before coming to Duke. So I don't think he is someone who will be in the rotation. But Ufochukwu is also not someone who is incapable of being on the floor for a few minutes and giving you some valuable time every now and then, and not just being a guy who plays in mop-up time. I think that's probably his primary role. His primary role is to play in practice and give Duke, give Duke's big men guys they can practice against. But I'm not ruling out, and let's not forget he redshirted last year. And I tried to find out. I'm not sure if he redshirted for medical reasons or not. I haven't seen anything about an injury. He may have just sort of chosen to redshirt to preserve another year of eligibility to get better for a year. I think that there are scenarios where this guy is helpful to the Duke team in reasonably competitive games. So it's a really interesting ad, and I think Scheyer recognized that Pat Gongba has had injury problems in the past. Malik Brown now has a very serious shoulder situation. We hope that surgery will resolve it, but a dislocated shoulder, the kind that Malik Brown has suffered from on multiple occasions, is something that could come back again and again. And I think that Scheyer went out and got someone who, I'm not going to say he would ever be able to play, 8, 10, 12 minutes in the rotation, but you need 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe he's not a terrible choice.
I was going to say, it's not just injury that I'm concerned about, it's foul trouble. And both Malik Brown and Pat Gongba at times were in foul trouble late in the year. And that's, again, not a thing that was a huge concern, but when, another teams faced this, the one thing they wanted to do was go after Cooper Flagg to try and get him in foul trouble, maybe go after Con Knipple, which Con Knipple's like, I don't do fouls. And then they would go after the big men to try and tap deep into their bench and make it where our rotations were off. This is where maybe on the other side, right, if we want to try and get a guy in foul trouble, we can put Ufochukwu in there and go, all right, be physical, do your thing. And I think you also need guys who are bought into their role. And Jason, if that role is, I'm not going to play that much, that is a role that needs to be bought into. That's a role that every one of these guys go to college to play basketball. It does not matter where they go. And these guys want to be on the floor. So you need to have someone who can accept the role of, hey, no matter what I do, I may not get more than 3 or 4 minutes in a game. And there's going to be games where I'm not going to get in at all, but I'm going to be ready. And I think that's where this comes from, because you need that to kind of round out the entirety of your roster. This is what roster construction is about. It's not just about being top heavy. It's about the guys at the other end of the bench also being guys that in a pinch, they will be ready to go.
Yeah, and clearly Duke is not done with the roster construction for next year. We've heard of numerous, I think 3 different guys who either have visited or are visiting over the next few days, Duke campus. And we could, you could start to get talk that one of these guys commits fairly soon, which, would be good. We want to bring guys in, get them working with the program, and, get them integrated into the team. We're into May at this point, So I think we're going to get some more roster news, I think, fairly soon.
Yeah. And if you remember last year, we got Sion James very early in May. We had some roster talk into mid May because of the combine and things like that. We were talking about who are we getting, who's finalizing these pieces very, very late into May. And that's not new. What I will stress to people, we kind of do this every year. Please do not think that everything that says Duke on it involves Duke. We have seen so many players so far this offseason that have been linked to Duke, and Duke is talking to them. And it was never the case, but I'm a Real Madrid fan. Anytime someone wants to kind of up their quotient a little bit and make people talk about him, they throw Real Madrid in the mix and say, yep, Real Madrid's interested, or they're looking at him. And it could be as simple as Real Madrid sent them a letter. They could have wished him a happy birthday, and they go, Real Madrid's interested. Just because someone has Duke next to him doesn't necessarily mean that Duke is targeting them. They may be talking to a lot of guys in an effort to narrow down, just like an interview process, right? Like if you're hiring someone for a job, you don't just talk to one guy. You talk to several people. You get a bunch of looks, and then you kind of say, which people do we need to move our company forward? That's what Jon Scheyer and the coaching staff is doing. So if you see other guys that are linked to Duke, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're linked to Duke. That just means someone put Duke there for one reason or another. And now with agents that are involved, it's going to be happening more and more. So, wade through the weeds to find the real news.
Well, it can be as simple as, and this is in the case of Des Claude from USC, who a lot of people a few days ago were like, oh, he's linked to Duke. And the reality is Duke made a phone call and sort of talked to him for a couple minutes. Apparently things haven't really progressed beyond that. I think that Duke does that with a lot of guys. They sort of, pick up the phone. Hey, let's just talk about what kind of role it is you're interested in, and, how you might fit. And in most cases, those two things may not work. Duke may be like, oh yeah, we need a guy to be our 8th or 9th man. And Des Claude is like, well, I'm looking to be a number 2 or number 3 guy. Okay.
Hey,
we're just
thanks
checking.
for your time. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just checking to see if you're interested in, and sometimes it works great. The case of a Sion James, Mason Gill, there are a lot of guys like that. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're going to be names associated with Duke where there's been little more than just a cursory phone call. We'll hear all about it as it happens. If guys start getting on campus, that's when it's for real.
But this is what we call silly season. It's been silly season for a long time. It's almost over though, because I feel like we're reaching the end of this. No matter what happens with our roster construction.
Yeah, but again, we want to say welcome to the Blue Devil fold. Ifeanyi Ufochukwu. God, I'm going to struggle on that one constantly. I can just tell.
Ufochukwu.
I got it. Okay.
There you go.
Welcome as a Blue Devil. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, oh my goodness, the schedule is shaping up really interestingly. We got some huge news from the ACC about who Duke will be playing next year and how many games Duke will be playing next year. More on that in just a moment.
Make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. The meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, and most importantly, they fill you up and they're delicious.
Yeah, and this is the perfect time of year to get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss.
It's time to get started at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off and use that code DukeBB50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code DukeBB50off at factormeals.com for 50% off plus free shipping.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Hello, Nigel here. As an owl, I love to be awake all night, but allergy sufferers like you probably don't feel the same. So take Xyzal at night to relieve allergies while you sleep. Then wake up fully refreshed for a more productive day. Xyzal works fast and offers 24-hour continuous relief from sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat, so you can enjoy doing the things you love all day long. Be wise all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
Donald, we're back from the break, and I want to start with this. The ACC has made official something that you and I have alluded to, something that's been talked about for a little while. They have announced that next year they will not play 20 conference games. There will only be 18 conference games. The conference has been very clear that the reason for this is they want to give ACC teams a couple more opportunities to play good opponents in the non-conference slate. I'm sure that almost every ACC team right now is calling up teams from the other power conferences to go, hey, you got a date we could find in a February or something like that, January or February, where we could add in a game, the same way Duke has already done with the Michigan Wolverines, where we will be playing them in February. But I think moving from 20 to 18 is a good move by the ACC. Frankly, there are some teams in the ACC that are, you derive nothing out of playing them. That's just the reality in terms of your resume and the such. And this gives you a chance to maybe schedule a couple more challenging games if you're a team who thinks you can win those kind of challenging games. And also, Donald, it means that the record that Jon Scheyer established last year of going 19-1, 19 victories, when you include the ACC tournament, it was a total of 22 victories. Sorry, 19, 20. Yeah, 22.
Yep.
Those records are likely to never be touched by anyone ever.
Well, until they, until
they go back to 20
switch
games,
to 30 games or something like that. We just play ACC games all day long. I will say this, Jason. We had Scott on here. I was talking with him when this came out, and there was a lot of talk about the rationale behind it. He and I expressed some skepticism, which still remains, right, and how this works and why it is working. Because at the end of the day, you have to have guys who will schedule these games, right? you mentioned all those schools that are probably calling up other schools saying, "Hey, do you got dates here?" But they haven't. There's some schools that just haven't shown that they want to do that yet. Now it's almost they have to be forced into doing it by having all these open dates. That hopefully they don't fill them with cupcakes, unlike us, right? And we'll talk about what we've done with that opportunity in a minute. But I will say this: we what we did not get and what we got today was how that schedule was going to look, which I think might be the one thing that I'm not in favor of. Now, 18 games, the ACC is planning to have each team have two teams they play home and away. So, for example, in the case of Duke, imagine UNC, obviously, and then maybe like a Wake Forest. Then you will play 14 games, 7 at home, 7 on the road against ACC opponents. But one of those teams, one of the 18 teams in the ACC, you will not face in a given year. So you are only playing 16 opponents every season instead of all 17, which I don't know that I like that. But again, you have to figure that there's with 18 games and 18 teams in the ACC, it's very hard to do that. And I think a lot of people had an issue, one, with playing just one team twice and other teams once. Teams that may have two rivals wanted to schedule two of those games and guarantee home slates against those two teams. I'm not sure that I like.
Let's just say it. You're talking about NC State. There was no way there's no way the ACC was going to take away the Duke Carolina game happening twice a year. It's the biggest game ratings wise on television all year for the entire country, let alone the ACC. And so if you're going to have two Duke Carolina games, NC State said, wait a second, we want to play Carolina twice. And so I think that's a major reason why this has happened.
I don't know that it's the only one because, as you mentioned, Wake Forest wants to be involved in that too. They want to play Duke and UNC. Almost everybody does, and they want that guaranteed home date against Duke or UNC. That's the real thing here. But then there's also the old Big East teams in the Northeast, right? BC has rivalries with Louisville and Syracuse and Pitt. They can't play all of them, right? And so some of these games, they want to find where their teams can schedule the opponents that they know are going to bring in sold out stadiums. Right. Everyone wants to play Duke on the road, at home, because that means they get a guaranteed sellout. Not everybody can do that. But in the absence of that, some of those rivalries that did come natural as they entered the conference, those are also getting broken up. So it's not just the Tobacco Road rivalries that obviously are a concern that they probably addressed. But I think it was interesting that Duke was at the forefront of, according to the CBS Sports article that we both wrote or read, it was Duke that was kind of one of the chief leaders behind moving from 20 to 18 because we're going to take advantage of that. But it's impendent on the rest of the conference to schedule some of these teams like a Washington or Oklahoma State or Colorado or Mississippi State or something like that, because if they're going to take these 2 extra games and schedule teams in the 300s in KenPom, then we've done the conference even further a disservice. So I think, I wonder if out of this there comes a requirement, kind of like the SEC has in football, of, hey, these 2 games that we're giving back to you, you got to schedule Power 5 conferences with them, or Power 5 teams with them. Go nuts on who you want to schedule, but that's at least 2 of those games have to be on there so that they can get that record up, because that's how the committee compares the ACC with everybody else.
Yeah, well, and it's also, the other conferences have to have space on their calendars. Mm-hmm. Teams that are willing to do this. I suspect that you're going to see the ACC get away from the December game. We've been playing that game. Everybody in the ACC have been playing an early December game as part of the conference schedule. I think that when they go from 20 to 18, that game very well may get dropped for a lot of teams, if not for the entire conference. And I kind of like that. Give teams a chance to be who they really are before you start playing conference games, because conference games are so important.
I will say, I believe it's only the Big 12 and the Big East now that, of the Power 5 conferences that have 20 games still. Everyone else is down to 18. So yes, that maybe creates some opportunities. And also with, obviously we have the ACC SEC challenge, so that's another opportunity. But kind of like us, right? We didn't settle for just Auburn last year from the SEC. We did end up playing Kentucky in the Champions Classic, And we've been able to schedule some of these games before. Of course, it's easy for us to do that, right? We're Duke. Everyone wants to play us in some fashion,
Right.
and it's easier for us to call up a team and go, "You want to rumble? Where do you want to do it?" I think it's the other teams, again, like the Boston Colleges, a Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, who are going to have some issues, and that's where the conference needs to step in and be like, let's match make some of these teams. Let's create those bracket buster weekends that they used to do in late February, but ACC versus a Big East, or even like an Atlantic 10, which is not a Power 5 conference, but at least strong enough that a committee can look at it and go, the ACC teams are challenging themselves against outside competition.
All right, let's go through this schedule because we've gotten in recent days and weeks, we've gotten a lot more hints. And some of these are games that were announced earlier that we've already talked about in this podcast, but we still want to at least briefly talk about each one of them. I will go through the full list right now very quickly, and then I'm going to go back and discuss each one of these games. We're going to play Texas in Charlotte on November 4th. We're going to play Western Carolina at Cameron on either Friday, November 7th or Saturday the 8th. We're going to play Army in a road game, a true road game, on November 11th. Indiana State, Duke's going to play at home on November 14th. We're going to have the Champions Classic against Kansas, neutral site, probably around November 18th.
In the Garden.
We're playing Arkansas in Chicago, neutral site game on Thanksgiving. At some point in December, we will have the SEC ACC Challenge game. At some point in December, Duke will play at a true road game at Michigan State. And then the only other one we know about, and we've discussed this on this podcast, is we'll be playing Michigan in Washington, D.C. sometime in February. This is the game that Duke made room for by having the ACC schedule reduced from 20 to 18 games. Donald, I want to go back to the top if I can really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a comment on each one of these games. So
well,
starting with the Texas
one, because I also got comments on each one, so we can go through them one by one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
We'll do one, then we'll do the next. Texas in Charlotte. Worth noting, Texas is generally seen as just outside the top 25, right around the top 25. I like the fact that this is one of 3 SEC teams on the Duke schedule. The SEC, such an impressive conference last year. Duke is not dodging that conference at all. Texas, by the way, new head coach Sean Miller moving over from Xavier, and he brought a couple of his better Xavier players with him. And Texas, a huge surprise about them. So their coach left, and usually when the coach leaves, everybody enters the portal. But Texas managed to keep several of their key players. Several starters are coming back for another year with a new coach, with Sean Miller, which is unusual in modern college basketball. The other thing I wanted to note about them is this is not a team, this Texas team, where I'm like, oh, this is the guy who's the star. They have 5 guys in the roster, 5 guys who all averaged between like 10 and 11 points per game last year. So good luck figuring out which one of them is going to be the offensive focus.
First of all, I love this game. I love this setup. It reminds you of when the Champions Classic was the very first game of the year. Now, Texas is not on that level, but it is a decent game to start the year, and it means that we need to be ready very, very quickly. I will not be surprised, Jason, if you know how last year we played Arizona State as a preseason game. It was kind of viewed as the Brotherhood Classic. I would not be surprised if we do that again this year. Maybe bring in like a Northwestern or a UCF, where you see Johnny Dawkins return to, and have that as a primary preseason game so that we can be prepared for this Texas game in Charlotte.
Right,
I think
right.
that would be very, very cool. But also, again, as you mentioned, this is the type of creative game that other teams of the ACC need to aim for. Right? Texas is viewed. The reason why they kept all their guys is because Texas has more money than God. Like they have,
Yeah.
they have the biggest budget in the country, and if they don't, they will get it because they just make a phone call and they can get $1 billion if they wanted to. But the fact that they are, again, trying to get back into that top 25 range, they're a big name. And when you hear Duke, Texas, and Charlotte, it reminds you of those games that we used to play back in the early 2000s. Mid 2000s when JJ Redick would torch him. My brother went to Texas, so this is a nice little sibling rivalry that we could do. But yes, this is a very cool game, and I'm really excited for it.
So up next, that Western Carolina game on November 7th or 8th. The only comment I have about this is if you are guessing a game that Duke might score 100 points, really good candidate here in Western Carolina. Last year, they were Ken Pomeroy's number 338 team, so one of the bottom 20 or 30 teams in the game, but they played the 37th fastest tempo. So they play an up-tempo game, and they're terrible. So 100-point alert on the Western Carolina game.
And it's a North Carolina school. We like to schedule one team from the state outside, obviously, of the conference. And we try to schedule that as a way to kind of get them in. This is one of those bye games. I don't remember the number that I saw, but it was a fairly decent number of a dollar amount for them to come play in Cameron. So they get this opportunity. It's been a long time, I want to say, since Western Carolina and Duke have played. So it's that opportunity for those guys to come to Cameron, but also, again, it's that local game that we like to schedule. Nothing more than that, Jason.
Up next, the game against Army on the road in West Point on November 11th. Now, Donald, Duke plays road games. Obviously, we play them in the ACC. We play them in the ACC SEC Challenge. Occasionally, we do the home road thing with another power conference team, like with Arizona. There's talk that Duke may be entering one of those with Kansas coming forward. The deal with Michigan State. We do those kind of things, but a true road game in a true road arena against a non-power conference team, it has been a long damn time since Duke did something like that. I went back. I checked every single year of Duke's schedule. In December of 2016, we played UNLV in Vegas. Wasn't even on their home. I mean, it was, on that court that they sometimes play on for a big opponent, but not technically.
It was at Thomas and Mack, which is where they actually play. So I'm counting. It is a true road game, but it's a NBA type
semi-road game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in 2012, we played Temple in Philly, but it was at the Wells Fargo Center. It wasn't at their home arena. Again, semi-road. In December of 2010, Duke played UNCG in Greensboro. It was at the Greensboro Coliseum, but that's where they play all their home games.
All their games, yeah.
So I guess that's the one. But, I mean, I didn't go back beyond that. That's 15 years ago. It has been a long damn time, though, since Duke's played a road game in a small arena like the one at Army. It's going to be full of cadets. It's just really exciting, and I think a really interesting thing the Blue Devils are doing.
I can tell you the last time they did it. It was when they went to Army, like back in the mid-90s.
Okay.
I think that's the last time that they went to an arena that's smaller than Cameron, right? I think this thing sees 5,500. I believe the Duke game that we played, I think, check me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 96 or so, 97. They ended up playing, I think it's the third highest attended game in Army's history. And it was, again, kind of because of Coach K and his connections with Army and how the fact that he went to Army and everything. This is what this game is about. It's on Veterans Day, so it's a way to honor all veterans, which I think is terrific. And it's a home and home, so we will see them in 2026 in Cameron. So we've arranged the home and home, which is kind of cool. But it has a Duke connection. The two schools are very much linked because of Coach K. And I just think the one thing I will say is we need new Coach K jerseys. The gray ones, we could get rid of those. We could get something nicer for this occasion.
Yeah. All right. Next on the calendar, Indiana State. Duke will be playing Indiana State in Cameron. Kind of on November 14th. Kind of amazing. First ever meeting between two of the oldest programs in the sport. Indiana State began playing hoops in 1899. Duke began in 1906. Other than that, there's not a lot interesting about this. Indiana State, a Missouri Valley Conference team that's not projected to be in the top 200. The most notable thing about Indiana State is Larry Bird played there.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right.
Who is no longer with them.
Yes.
Who's no longer with them. But I think this is it's more of a matchup. This is not expected to be a good team, but the name always brings up those days of Larry Bird, obviously. So it's one of those where people go, oh, they're playing Indiana State, and it's kind of the mass effect that this is one of those bye games. But when you hear, oh, Duke versus Indiana State, everyone goes, oh, interesting, right? Instead of, okay, another 100-point, blowout, right? So
right.
It's about the mindset of when you look at the schedule, you think of something more prestigious when you see Indiana State on there as opposed to a directional U that is in the 300s.
All right, as we continue our march through the Duke non-conference schedule, what we know of it so far, and they're almost certainly still 3 or 4 games to be added to the schedule. We get to the Champions Classic being played at MSG in New York. We'll be playing Kansas on November 18th. Kansas is probably as low rated, at least at the moment, as they've been in many years in terms of preseason rankings. Most folks have them outside the top 10 at the moment. They haven't really crushed it in the portal quite as well as they usually do. But they have a freshman recruit by the name of Darren Peterson, who some people think is the best freshman in the nation. I'm really looking forward to watching us play him. He is a high flyer. In the McDonald's All-American game, he put on an absolute dunk fest. I just think it's really interesting to me that we're going to get to play against Darren Peterson and get to see this guy who some people say should go ahead of AJ Dybansa as the number 1 player in the draft in 2026. And it's also worth noting Kansas will bring, I'm pretty sure they're bringing Flurry Bidunga back, a guy who Duke was very close to recruiting, a guy who showed tremendous potential a year ago as a big man, and could be a very, very interesting matchup for the Duke bigs on the inside.
Also, it's Kansas. Duke, Kansas. Yeah. I mean, I was there in Vegas. It was a high flying electric event. We know what happened, but it was absolutely, from a neutral standpoint, an amazing game all the way down to the final possession. It's the Champions Classic. It's Kansas. It's the Garden. Need I say more?
Exactly. Thanksgiving, Duke will be playing in Chicago against Arkansas. This, by the way, because Duke has arranged this game, it means that Arkansas is not a possible opponent for Duke in the ACC SEC Challenge. I think if we weren't playing this game, they would have been a pretty likely potential opponent for Duke. Arkansas is shaping up probably as a preseason top 10 team. They brought in a really nice transfer in Florida State forward Malik Ewan. They've got some very, very good returning players, some couple top 10 recruits. It is a really good mix that Arkansas is putting together. One of the best rosters that money can buy, with returning guys, some important portal additions, and some very, very good freshmen. It is also worth noting that the place we're playing there in Chicago will host the Midwest Regional. So if somehow Duke ends up in that region, we will know the arena.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the other arena that they could face, that they could be if they went to the East a little bit later. But again, Thanksgiving, we said screw it, we're going up against the NFL, and I think that's bold in them. It's again another alternative for people who may just be tired of football at that point of the day. A very big opponent. The only thing I'll disagree with you on is I don't think Arkansas was in the cards for being the ACC SEC opponent, only because right now it feels like we're slated to be on the road, and we've already faced them on the road. I think if we were to see them again, it would be in Cameron. But again, there's a lot we'll talk about in a second. I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go home away, home away, home away. They'll figure that matrix out, but you stay at home every 2 years. But Arkansas, again, Coach Cal, they're going to be much better than they were this year. And Thanksgiving night, it's just a really big time matchup, and I liked the fact that we are doing that. And again, like you said, being in Chicago, it's obviously where Jon Scheyer grew up, where they call him White Mike, and
he is a legend in Chicago.
Yeah, legend in Chicago, but also again, it's about seeing the future, and the future could be Midwest Regional at the United Center, and we'll get a taste of how that feels like.
So you were mentioning the SEC ACC Challenge, and it's pretty likely that is the next game on the schedule, at least in terms of what we know at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and say right now that I don't think Duke will get Kentucky. I think Kentucky and Louisville are going to be slated to play each other. Obviously huge rivalry game. Both Kentucky and Louisville look like they are shaping up as top 10 teams, if not top 5 teams next year. So ideal chance for them to play each other. I also don't think ESPN sort of wants to waste Duke and Kentucky on one game. I know you're going to get a lot of attention for that game, but I think those two teams, who are the two biggest draws in the challenge, ESPN is going to want them on different nights in different games. They'll be in the 9 o'clock slot, the biggest slot. But I don't think you're going to see Duke playing Kentucky in the ACC SEC Challenge. Return game against Auburn is definitely a possibility, I think, here. Boy, you would see a ton of Isaiah Evans highlights in the hours and days leading up to that game for sure if we played Auburn again. Feels like Auburn might be a little bit down. I mean, they were the top team in the land last year. They're certainly down from that. Feels like they might be just sort of a fringe top 10, maybe a top 15 team this year. A lot of it probably depends on whether Tahad Pettiford stays in the NBA draft or comes back to be their point guard. I actually think the best bet is that Duke is going to be matched up with Alabama for a rematch of their game in the NCAA tournament. But it's worth noting, all these teams are really good fits in terms of, you were mentioning the home and away thing. Duke was at home last year. Alabama, Auburn, and Kentucky are all due home games this year, and Duke is due a road game. So that's why I think those three are the most likely opponents for Duke in the challenge.
Very quick on the Louisville, Kentucky matchup. I don't know that it's necessarily one that they'll go for, only because those teams schedule each other every year. And I think in the case of Louisville, if we're talking about the ACC trying to schedule more marquee matchups, they may want that to not be a part of the challenge because they want that extra opportunity to play somebody good. Now, going back to, I think also they will eventually have Duke in Kentucky, because I feel like at a certain point, despite the fact we play each other every 3 years in the Classic, they will not resist the temptation of putting Duke versus Kentucky in Rupp or in Cameron. That is going to happen. It just may not be. I don't think it's going to be this year. I think your guess on Alabama is what my first guess was going to be. I also think Florida would be an interesting thing. I don't know if Florida was on the road or at home last year, but again, Florida's the national champions and a team that we almost saw in the Final Four. But I think that would be an interesting one. And yeah, a return game at Auburn, I think that is something you could see. Dark horse candidate would be Tennessee. And again, for the simple reason of we've played them recently. And again, a team that was very, very high up in the rankings. So yeah, you have your choice here. And if we're going on the road, you're going to 4 venues that are pretty good and playing 4 teams that are really great. And I think that's what you want in this challenge.
Florida, by the way, not necessarily. I mean, not that it couldn't happen, because they do sometimes give teams a back-to-back. But Florida played at home last year. Duke played at home last year, so one of them would be getting a double home game. That's why I didn't include Florida on my list of likely opponents. But you could see the attraction there of people saying, "Oh, this was what a lot of folks thought the national championship game should have been." The silliness there is that the best players from Florida are gone. All the starters from Duke are gone. It's not like you go, "Oh, this is the de facto national." Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because so many of the guys have changed over. All right, as we continue down on the schedule, Michigan State on the road in December. Look, we know everything we need to know about Michigan State. I want to say this. I know Duke has owed Michigan State a return home game for 2020 when the Champions Classic was played at Duke rather than at a neutral arena. But I think it's a little bit ridiculous that we have to pay them back for that. Frankly, that game in 2020, in December of 2020, was played in front of an arena full of cardboard cutouts with zero fans, zero sound, just the ball bouncing on the floor and sneakers making squeaks. It is not like a normal game in Duke or in East Lansing. So, I mean, I guess we owe them a game, but what kind of a trade is this? Play us in an empty arena and we have to come back and play you in East Lansing with your fans going bonkers. It's a bizarre trade, in my opinion, but it is what it is. And Jon Scheyer will duck no one. So road game in East Lansing. Duke's playing like 2 or 3 true, real road games next year. I mean, hat tip to Scheyer for what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think it was the first time in 30 years that we had 3 road games before Christmas this past year, and we're going to be duplicating that at some point this coming season. Yeah, I mean, look, you know me, I've been in the Breslin Center a ton of times. I've not been for a Michigan State game. I've gone for MHSAA high school championship games, of which my team was competing in a lot of them. Hi, Shane Battier. But I think going to the Breslin Center, I think the last time we went there, Jason, was that the game that Trey Jones absolutely just worked Lawyer into the ground. And,
I think
just
yes, yeah, we're
crossed him into the dirt. So
Yeah.
I don't know who wants that assignment of getting crossed into the dirt, and who wants to do the digging. But yeah, I think going to the Breslin Center is fine. I think I agree with you. I don't think it's a cool. I don't think it's a fair trade-off for staying safe during COVID. But hey, if we got to go beat them in the Breslin Center, let's go do it.
All right, and the last thing is we really don't have a date on this. We just know sometime in February. I'm sure it's something that the conferences are going to have to work out based on conference schedules. But the Donald Wine and Scott Rich honorary game against the Michigan Wolverines in Washington, D.C. Michigan easily projected as a top 10 team. Just a great out-of-conference matchup in February. A good insurance game in case the ACC sucks again. If we're running to the ACC like a knife through butter, it'll be a good way to see if that's because Duke is really good or because the ACC is just a mirage. All that said, I won't mind if we put another 40-plus point beat down the way we did on Illinois just a few weeks ago. And you alluded to this earlier, Donald. Washington, D.C., your hometown, will be hosting the East Regional this year. And I think the scenario that all Duke fans are hoping for is that the Blue Devils are the #1 seed in the East and that we are playing in Washington in a familiar arena come next March.
I can walk to this game. It'll take me 20 minutes. That is amazing. And I love doing that. I also think, again, as you mentioned, Michigan is going to be really, really tough. And I think it's another late season addition where we kind of get break out of the monotony of the ACC and get a hard look at what could face us in a Sweet 16 game, in an Elite 8 game. That is what this is about. I also think, Jason, because we have 20 games reduced to 18, I'm counting right now, and of the games, and of course, none of these are official except for the Champions Classic and the Arkansas game. Those are the two games that have been officially announced. Everything else has been reported heavily, and we're going with it because nobody has refuted any of those games, right? But that leaves us with 18 ACC games and 9 non-conference games that we know of so far, which means usually teams, again, they usually play 30 to 31 games in the regular season. I think one of those is counting the when they had multi-team events, which most people are not doing much of anymore. But to get to 30, we still have room for like 3 more games. So now, could this be your incarnate word type of game? Probably one of them is. Yeah. Could one of them be like a George Mason type of game? Yeah, I actually think that's very possible. And then it could be possible that we're missing one more.
To be clear, by that, the difference in those games, for folks who don't remember, an incarnate word is a team that is pretty low down on the
quad four.
But George Mason is a solid mid-major. And these are the kind of teams that Duke's pretty likely to face, not necessarily in the round of 64, but in the round of 32, that kind of, potential kind of game.
Yeah, I'm thinking quad 4 type of game that would be a team, as you mentioned, would be in the first round. Someone who's won their conference tournament, and their reward is they get to play the mighty Duke Blue Devils. Then you have like a George Mason who would be a solid quad 2 game. Maybe a quad 1, but really a solid quad 2 game.
Yeah.
And then,
because you're going to do it at home, it may fall to quad 3, but it's probably quad 2. Yeah.
Yeah. But type of team,
100-ish kind of team. Yeah.
Right. And then at the end, you might see us play that third game. Might be not a huge team, but like a team that's rated 50 to 100 in KenPom. That sort of thing. I mentioned George Mason. I believe George Mason was like 87th or something like that when we played them. So it was like a solid quad 1 or I'm sorry, quad 2, maybe a borderline quad 3 game when we played them.
Yeah.
But I think
and they finished the year 79th. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're looking at something like that, but maybe in a power conference, I'm looking at like, I don't know, a USC, a Rutgers.
I don't know. Wait, I'm going to disagree. I don't think it's going to be another power conference team. I think the current schedule that we have right now is probably all the power conference teams you're going to see Duke play. I think you're right that we're going to get, other mid majors and a low major or two, especially around the exam break.
Call me crazy, but I don't think that's impossible. I think
maybe
again, when I'm looking, I'm using teams as an example, but 50 to 95, 100, maybe like 105, because if you're thinking about Jason, that also lines up, unfortunately, with what we saw in the conference last year, where most of our games were against teams that were basically from 75 to 110 or 120, right? In the Ken Palm rankings, like the Virginias and the Virginia Techs, who we hope will be better, but we have to prepare for how we approach a team that is decent, that we have to win, because if we lose, it's viewed as a negative. But if we win, no one really takes anything good from it. So we're going to have one of those kind of games against again, an opponent that people go, oh, interesting, right? It's not going to be a mighty game, but it's going to be an opponent with a name that everyone goes, Duke versus insert blank. That seems fine. That doesn't seem like they're doing a cupcake game of any kind. So again, and I just think Jon Scheyer is just saying, unlike unlike the conclave, he will welcome any kind of smoke, black smoke, white smoke, green smoke. It does not matter. He will welcome it all. And if someone wants to play him, he's going to listen and figure out what, kind of matrix he needs and the games that he wants to schedule. But I don't think that we're going to see a lot of those lower like quad four games this year, because he wants to challenge this team, and I think he's ready to again bring on anyone. So I don't think, again, it's not going to be like a St. John's or a Marquette or something like that, but it's going to be a team that when you hear it, everyone's going to go, oh, John is really not ducking smoke, and is going to be confirmed by the name of that opponent.
Well, perhaps I've got another thought for you. Here are three names: High Point, Lipscomb, and Troy. All three of those teams, close regional team. High Point plays in North Carolina, Lipscomb and Troy, Tennessee, Alabama. So very, same time zone as Duke. All three of those teams won their conference tournaments and played in the NCAA tournament. They were like, 13, 14 kind of seeds. I think those would be prime possible opponents for Duke next year in one of these remaining slots.
I will correct you very quickly and just say, because we like to keep things fresh on the show. Troy is in Troy, Alabama. Lipscomb's in Nashville. Both are in the Central Time Zone, but I digress.
Oh yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I think those teams
that are the time zone, but nearby. Yes,
like a quick hour flight where they can come in and get a game against Duke. I'm looking at those teams, but also again, I'm looking at teams that I think, again, when you hear those names, people go, oh, like in a positive way, as if to say, hey, Duke is playing that as a solid quad 3 opponent. That's even a solid quad 4, right? In the case of an Army, we're not playing the South directional points universities and colleges. Even Incarnate Word, God bless them, right? When people heard Incarnate Word, they go, really, Duke, you're playing Incarnate Word? That's what's cool. Incarnate Word just had the #1 pick in the NFL draft in Cam Ward, who started there. But it had David Robinson. So like you have those type of connections to the ACC, but this is going to be one where I don't think those connections need to be found. They're going to be present in the announcement of the name.
By the way, one more to toss out. UNC Wilmington made the NCAA tournament as well.
That's a good one. That'd be a decent one.
Yeah. That's another really good one as a possibility. These are all teams that won 25 plus games last year. So yeah. Hey, Don, I know there was one more item you wanted to mention to folks. A honor for the GOAT.
Yeah. What do you get the guy who has everything? You get him another Hall of Fame induction. Coach K is now a member of the Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame. Of course, he was the coach of the USA men's basketball team. Only lost once in his tenure there over 9 years. Led the USA men's basketball team to 3 consecutive USA Olympic gold medals and 6 overall golds as head coach. He will be inducted on Saturday, July 12th. That Hall of Fame is in Colorado Springs. He will be joined by fellow inductees Steve Cash, Gabby Douglas, Anita DeFrance, Allison Felix, Susan Hagel, who am I thinking? Oh, Kerry Walsh Jennings, Phil Knight, those types. Serena Williams, the bobsled team from 2010, and the 2004 women's wheelchair basketball team. I think I might have missed 1 or 2 on here, but the fact is that Coach K, once again, somehow is getting accolades that he should have gotten decades ago. Because not only was he a member as head coach of those teams, 2008, 2012, 2016, but he also was a member of the Dream Team, right? As an assistant coach. He has been doing this for a very long time. And I believe was he in 1984 as well? Was he an assistant coach for them under Bob Knight?
I believe so. Oh, boy, that's a ways back.
That's a ways back, but I'm not sure. I know
maybe
Dream
not.
Team
Maybe
for
not.
sure.
I don't remember.
Okay. But either way, he's been doing this for a long time. It's the fact that he is getting this reward for his years of service is a testament, obviously, to how great he was. I don't think he is going to have a Olympic record that is going to be touched in basketball ever again on the men's side. The women's side is different because they haven't lost in eternity. But I think that it's very cool to see him get this award. It's very cool to see him finally among the greats in Olympic and Paralympic history. And as always, he's the GOAT. We really appreciate him. We love him. And we're glad that he's getting this award.
Yeah, I'm looking back. I don't see him as an assistant coach prior to the Dream Team in '92. Yeah, I don't think so. So, hey, Donald, one other thing I want to mention very quickly, something that hit our inbox while you and I were recording this. The ACC, in their formal announcement about the 18-game schedule, has announced the primary partners. These are the teams that you will play every single year as a home and home. And the other team, we mentioned the 2 home and homes. The other team will be variable, so it will change from year to year. So NC State's great desire to play Carolina every single year under this conference plan, they would not. It may happen, that they would play Carolina. It may be that they schedule it that way this year, but it's not going to happen every single year if the ACC sticks with this current plan. Here are the primary partners: Duke and UNC. We knew that one. Boston College and Notre Dame, whatever. I mean, I guess.
By the way, Jason, you guys can't see this. I'm going to react to these because I had a list that I listed.
In your head? Yeah.
No. I wrote it down and I didn't share it with you because I forgot to do it because they blew up this plan with this 2 partner thing. But as you react to them, I'm going to react as if I knew, because I have a list of these partners that I predicted, and so far we're 2 for 2. So go ahead.
Well, wait. Why don't you give me the next one? I'll tell you if you're right.
Oh, well, I don't have them in order. Hang on. I got to find it now.
In any order you want, man. Just spit it out.
Oh my God, they didn't save.
Oh, likely. All right, I'm gonna go.
Okay, let me guess. Syracuse and Louisville.
No, you'd be incorrect. Louisville is getting SMU. Syracuse gets Pitt.
Pitt. Okay, so again, those Big East Conference, the 4
Big
East teams.
I'll give you an easy one though. Clemson,
Georgia Tech,
naturally. Cal,
Stanford.
These are easy. Florida State,
Miami.
Yeah, you knew that one. NC State. If it's not Duke or UNC, it is
Wake.
Exactly. And then the only remaining one, Virginia
Tech.
Exactly. So again,
so I missed 2 with the Big East pairing. So I'm good.
Yeah. Although some of these are, like I said, some of these kind of are layups.
Well, Notre Dame, I mentioned Notre Dame and Boston College is not necessarily because of the basketball, it's because of the football rivalry that they have.
Yeah. And the Catholic rivalry. But BC's another Catholic school, isn't it?
Jesuit, I want to say, but I could be mistaken there.
Yeah.
But yes,
right.
they're
getting ourselves into trouble when we speculate too much.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. We've done enough. That's it for this edition of the DBR podcast. Once again, congratulations to all the other podcasts who will be losers when the Golden Globes announce the best podcast of the year, because it's right here, baby. We are going to get it.
If you are the Golden Globes, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. You can just send us our invitations there. We will be happy to join.
I insist that I be at a table with Anne Hathaway.
Fine with me.
Or Florence Pugh. I'll give him options. Anne Hathaway or Florence Pugh. I must be sitting next to one of the 2 of them. That's all.
Put me next to the food trays. I don't care. Put me next to the bar. Actually, it's the Golden Globes. You know what they do at the Golden Globes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. He's Donald. I'm Jason. This is the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home. So for, I don't know how many months I've been saying, I'm going to get a new computer. I got my new computer. I've loaded everything on it. I think we're going to attempt to record on this computer. I think it sounds fine.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, good, cool. And I'm gonna try and edit the episode and upload it and everything like that. So
okay.
And hopefully I will never have to deal with my other computer that seemed to crap out all the time. Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I was about to say mine is starting to show its age over the last couple of weeks, so we'll see what that means. Sometimes, Macs give a false sense of death on their computers, like, oh, it's about to die, I should get a new computer. Then like it vibrantly returns to life, and then one day it just like absolutely just conks out the wrong time.